The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. We must hold our government accountable to the people it serves. Thomas Jefferson, paraphrased. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. For tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. All right. First things first, you might notice that I got a ratty hat on or ball cap. And that's because I have to use my work ball cap because I somehow have misplaced my nice one. I know that, I've got to talk about the important things here on the show. And that is part of the reason that I was running but late. Because I was like, where's my ball cap? I call it my hat all the time, but it's technically a ball cap. But anyway, I was like, where is it? And it's normally like sitting somewhere. And I couldn't find it. And I was like, it's gonna feel so awkward to do a show without it. I think there was one show where I actually didn't even realize I didn't have my hat. And there, I showed up to the show, got it started, and then in the middle of the show, I was like, "Oh, I'm not even wearing my hat." So this is my version of Tim Pool's beanie, right? I would literally wear the hat like pretty much everywhere I go at all times. One of the two. So if I go out in the yard and I'm working, or I'm working on a renovation, then I put on this hat. But if I'm just, wearing some relatively nicer clothes and I go to the restaurant or something like that, I wear my other one. So I'll have to go and figure out where it is. So that's how we are. All right, let's check in on it's funny. Kagela says it's Rumble Day. Speaking of Rumble, let's check in on a Rumble update. Now, I said I wasn't going to do any updates, and but I meant it, but I'm going to have to deviate a little bit from my prior words. I'm not going to be necessarily giving you, blow by blow updates like here we are. Keep checking out. You guys are doing great, watching the show, promoting the show, commenting. But it came across the wire that Rumble is updating the Rumble Creator Program. So I wanted to give you guys a little heads up so that you can continue assisting me because this will be new. So here is what was said by I believe the CEO of Rumble. His name is Chris Pavlovsky. He's either the CEO or he's somebody important in Rumble, right? But all right. So here's what he said: We're adding a new requirement to the creator program: number of unique chatters. The program is proving to be a real success for creators that have an engaged audience. Here's the key: the more success the program has, the larger the payouts will be for all creators. Creators that provide low engagement on Rumble take away from the pool of creators that do an awesome job. The new requirement helps drive creators and the creator program towards success. And then another person followed up. They reposted that, and I believe they are on like a development team or something like that. And so this is what they said. They said, "Here's what the creator program widget on the dashboard will look like. This will be unique chatters over the course of the month, not per stream." So now you might be asking yourself, "Okay, DL, what is a chatter?" A chatter is somebody that's in the comments making comments, and I believe live. So I don't think it counts toward the count of chatters if you come back later and comment. So there's all these crazy requirements, right? And that's fine. That's the way it goes. It is the reality when you're looking at podcasting and streaming because it is so cheap today to be a podcaster or a streamer that everybody can get in on it. And so then when you're dealing with money, well, there's a finite amount of money to work with. And so they've got to figure out ways to make sure that they help people. Now, so let's take a look at this image here, and I'm going to shrink myself just a wee bit so that you can see everything. So here's the image that we have up on the screen. Now this is just a sample. This is not my image. This came from the fellow that just said, "Hey, here's what it's going to look like." So what you can see is the blue lines; those represent the requirements that already exist as is. The green represents this new chatters. And so in this particular case, it shows that they have a requirement of 20 chatters. And then it's showing on this graphic that there's like 542 people. So what that would mean is, and they're looking at the number 20. That's not a given just yet, but they seem to be hinting that 20 is about where they're going to land. So what that means is through the course of the month, like say this is June. If they had I assume they're not going to implement it until at least next month at the earliest. But let's just say they had it implemented in the month of June. That would mean that I would need 20 unique people commenting on my shows while it's live sometime through the month. That's what that is. And like, and then of course you add that on top of the hours that are streamed, the hours watched, and then the Rumble Premium hours, all which all which are like two of those existing ones I have full control over, right? Because I can determine how much I stream. And so, and then the third one, the hours watched, that's where you, the audience, comes into play. Make sure that you're watching. Make sure you give a comment. Just hey, great show. Hey, please don't ever talk about that topic again. Whatever. Like throw out the criticism. That's fine. The nicer it is, the more likely I'm to listen. Right? If you get on there and you're like, your show sucks, and it'd be better if you just hide yourself. Probably not gonna Probably not gonna do that. You know what I'm saying? You know, what do they say? Like honey, vinegar, you wanna attract flies or something like that, you know? So anyway, so that's what the update is. So, once that gets implemented, I'll let you know, and then I'll just encourage anybody that is not chatting to maybe just throw a comment in there. I mean, you only got from what I can and now it's not clear what the details are, like, if you got on there one show and you're just like, "Hi, DL," uh, you know, I don't know if they're gonna count that. So once the details fully roll out, I will let you know, and we will figure this out together, and we will continue to grow the Liberty Dad show and make this a popular show to talk about libertarian ideas, and raise dad voices and all the cool things that we've been doing. So that's what we got. By the way, I will point out this from what I know so far, this will only account because I think it was said in one, like somebody asked a question and then they responded. This is only going to count for Rumble. Okay. So if you're posting or if you're commenting on YouTube or if you're commenting on X or Facebook, while I appreciate it, and I am not going to give you a hard time for being there. I get it. You're the audience. You're going to use whichever platform you're most comfortable with. So I'm not going to give you a hard time over that. But I will kind of point out to people like, hey, if you're on Rumble or if you can, go over there and make a comment. But again, you don't have to do anything right now. You, the audience, just continue what you're doing. Support the show in the ways that you can, and then we will just simply grow together, plain and simple. So that's the update. I will give you more information as it comes across. So let's see. I think that's everything. I think it's everything to talk about on that. So today's topic is Project 2025. Now, you might say, well, here's the thing. I was kind of looking, and I was like, what can I talk about? And as I was browsing and just kind of looking around, I actually came across this website, Project 2025 Tracker, and it's really neat because here's the thing. Before the election, leading up to the election, there was all this talk about Project 2025. And the problem with it was like 900 pages, and it wasn't clear to what degree, if any, the president was on board with the ideas, right? So, like, it was very difficult to really wanna read 900 pages and critique it if, like, because it came from the Heritage Foundation, but the question is, like, how much of it would the president be willing to implement? How on board was he with it, right? Like, we don't know that. And I will say this, he did actually, he actually ended up disavowing it. Let's see here. Where'd that image go? I can find it here. Here it is. So he disavowed it back in July of 2024. And here's what he said: I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who's behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them. Okay. Well, he disavowed it, right? And I don't necessarily look for the president to disavow or whatever, but that's what he said. So, but it popped up on my radar, and so I thought, you know what? Here's what I'm thinking I might do. Number one, I'll just kind of point out this website if you want to check it out because I thought it was really, really interesting, and it makes going through Project 2025 much less boring, right? Like far, it's far more interesting this way. So I give them credit for putting together this website. But I want you to. Well, here's what I want you to do. I'm thinking to make this a regular, maybe a weekly thing, just to catch up and say. And you'll see why here in a minute. You'll see how it will make sense. Um, but I'm thinking to make this like a regular thing. And as we go through it today and just kind of take a peek and just kind of see what information we can learn, what I want you to do is just kind of consider like, hey, you know what, DL, you should do this once a week, or once every other week or something like that. I like to do things weekly if I can. I think it makes it easier for me to kind of schedule and structure the show. But let me know in the comments. Now I want to be careful. We're not gonna do the whole audience capture, but if you guys are, like, really against it and you're like, "No, this is a terrible idea," then I'll have to really consider that, right? But if you guys are like, "Man, do it. Yeah, this would be great." Well, then, I'll have to consider that as well. But if you guys are kinda, like, somewhere in between, like, you can do it if you want. I don't care. I'll tune in, whatever." Then, I'll have to make my own decision. So that's where we are. So yeah, we're going to go through this. Now, what is Project 2025? Well, it was written about in the New York Times back in 2023. So here, I'm going to put this up on the screen. We're not going to read the whole New York Times article. We're just going to read some of it. Where are you here? Do. Why are you not popping up on the screen here? What do you want? Don't want to work? Hmm. It was working a moment ago. Let's see if we can't figure this out. There we go. All right. Okay. So here we are. This is an old New York Times article. It says Trump. I'm gonna zoom in on this so you guys can see this a little bit better. There we go. All right. All right. There's a picture of Donald Trump. Trump and allies forge plans um, to increase presidential power in 2025. The former president and his backers aim to strengthen the power of the White House and limit the independence of federal agencies. Well, just from that alone, and given the topic, what we talked about yesterday, it kind of seems like that may be happening, right? I mean, remember yesterday in a very, very long episode, which by the way, I'm anticipating this episode today will be a little bit shorter to kind of help balance things out. But yesterday, one of the things that I was criticizing the president about is that he was like with the Abrego Garcia case. When I walked through it and I looked at the timeline and I said, all right, let's look at the events and let's piece this together. For me, it looked like he was absolutely trying to evade judicial review with his actions. And then yesterday, when we went in and we were talking about the civil unrest in LA, it looks to me like he's trying to very quickly invoke presidential power over the state, right? And it's not that he's not using anything that's new per se, right? Like yesterday when we walked through it, there is you have the Insurrection Act of what was it, 1807? I think it was 1807. But you have this Insurrection Act that was put into place, right? And then it's been amended a couple of times, and it looks like he was basically just kind of invoking it in a sense. And so this is it's not like he created this new power. It just seems like rather than create it per se, he's trying to invoke it earlier than you might expect, right? And I mean, if you think about it, like think about some of the other things that he's done. Um, he he said, "All right, all these groups are now domestic. They're terrorist groups. Now we can take care of them." Like there's a lot of things that he's doing that seem to be a little bit unprecedented in terms of how quickly he gets there. So it does kind of seem like he is trying to increase presidential power. So I think it would be kind of interesting to go through. Let's read a little bit of what they said in 2023. We're just going to read like a couple paragraphs here. Donald J. Trump and his allies are planning a sweeping expansion of presidential power over the machinery of government if voters return him to the White House in 2025, reshaping the structure of the executive branch to concentrate far greater authority directly in his hands. Their plans to centralize more power in the Oval Office stretch far beyond the former president remarks that he would order a criminal investigation into his political rival, President Biden, signaling his intent to end the post Watergate norm of Justice Department independence from White House political control. Mr. Trump and his associates have a broader goal to alter the balance of power by increasing the president's authority over every part of the federal government that now operates by either law or tradition, with any measure of independence from political interference by the White House, according to a review of his campaign policy proposals and interviews with people close to him. Uh, Mr. Trump intends to bring independent agencies like the Federal Communications Commission, which makes and enforces rules for television and internet companies, and the Federal Trade Commission, which enforces various antitrust and other consumer protection rules against businesses under direct presidential control. All right. So, like, and it goes on. I mean, there's more of this. You can read through it if you want. I've got the link in the show notes. You can go check it out. So that's a kind of a summary of what was claimed. Now you have what his opponents claim, and then you have what he claims. So the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Now, what could be the case, you have a couple of options here. Number one, Trump could be lying back in that post that he made. He could have been lying. And he might really love Project 2025, but just wants to kind of look like he has nothing to do with it so that he doesn't alarm anybody. It's also possible that he was telling the truth. He was like, look, I have no issues or sorry, no connection with any of the issues that are laid out in Project 2025. Um, but it also could be the case that his his policy goals are still pretty much in alignment. And it's also possible that either he supported it quietly and is lying, or did not support it, but is still being influenced by Project 2025. So there's all kind of directions. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no way for us to necessarily know which of those is true, because he could just say, I have no involvement with this. And if everybody else says, and if nobody that's in there disagrees, if nobody provides receipts, well, then you can't, I mean, it's just speculation at that point. But what we can do is we can look through it and we can say, all right, well, um, the more and more that we see that gets applied, at a minimum, at least there's influence. Now, what I found interesting when I pulled up the document and I read it, and again, it's 900 pages. And when I said I read it, when I kind of skimmed through it, at the very beginning, it lists like 277 names as contributors. So I thought it was interesting because where was it? I think it was on Wikipedia that I was reading. Um, you guys are hilarious. Liberty Dad is actually using the New York Times as an info source. Oh man. Yes. Yes. Well, okay. So I'm only reporting what his opponent said. So in this context, I think it's reasonable, right? Like I'm not like saying, "Hey, the New York Times said it. They're the paper of record, so therefore it must be true." But in this context, I'm like, "Well, the New York Times is his opponent. This is what they claimed, and a lot of people believe that." So, in fairness to me, I think it's legitimate at this point. Even if you hate the New York Times and you're like, they never tell the truth. In this particular case, it does at least reflect accurately what his opponents were saying. So there's that. But yes, yes, I know. I was using that. And then I just said Wikipedia. Like, I'm not even sure which would be worse, Wikipedia or um, or the New York Times. But here we are. That's the way that it rolls. So, but I thought that was interesting, and I'm not gonna put it up on the screen, but let's see here. Let's see. I'm gonna try to find it because I closed that. Um, all right, so let's see what we got here. So according to Wikipedia, it said, where did it go here? Do. Oh yeah, it said most of Project 2025's writers and contributors worked in either Trump's first administration or his 2024 election campaign. Several Trump campaign officials maintained contact with Project 2025, seeing its goals as aligned with their Agenda 47 program. So I thought that was interesting. So what I did, I copied all the names. There's 277 names as contributors, and I dumped them into AI. And I said, "All right, here's a list of contributors to Project 2025. Tell me how many have a formal role in Donald Trump's in his first term, and then tell me how many have a formal role in his current term." So out of the 277, his first term, according to AI, I did not verify all these because that would be a lot. I don't want to verify 45 names, but according to AI, in his first term, 32 of those people that contributed out of the 277 were had some formal role in his first term, and then out in his second term, currently, 13 have are on there. So I thought that was interesting because I was like, that seems like a significant number. Now it's not quite what Wikipedia presented, which said most of their writers and contributors, right? 13 and I'm sorry, yeah, 13 and 32 is 45. That is not most of 277. That's not even half. So now it could be that there were some other things that it was calculating. I didn't dig in to see, when it said, okay, most, what do they mean by most? Because it said worked in his first administration or his election campaign. So what I asked for was a little bit different. I said, all right, who had a formal role once he was elected? So there it could be the case that, you know, more than half, most of them were, that you have a whole bunch more people that were involved in his campaign. But I would have to dig in, and honestly, out of 277 names, um, I'm content just taking AI's word for it, right? Especially if you just want to look at like the 13 that are in the current role. And where's my list? I'll even tell you who. So I'll just read the 13 names. It's only 13, right? I can do that. So let's see here. Where did it go? Yes, there we go. All right. So let me give you those 13 names. All right. Michael Anton, Director of Policy Planning at the State Department. Paul Atkins, Commissioner of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Brendan Carr, Chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. Now that's kind of interesting. Like the FCC, they mentioned that in the New York Times. Um, Monica Crowley, Assistant Secretary of State. Troy Edgar, Deputy Secretary of Homeland Secretary of Security. John Fear, I think, Chief of Staff at U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Gene Hamilton, Deputy Attorney General. Pete Hoekstra, I think it's Hoekstra, Ambassador to Canada. Tom Homan, we know that guy, Border Czar. John Ratcliffe, Director of the Central Intelligence Agency. Aaron Szabo, Assistant Administrator for Air and Radiation at the Environmental Protection Agency. Anthony Tata, Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness. And then Russell Vaught, Director of the Office and Management and Budget. So those are the names that AI has said are currently they were contributors to Project 2025 as the list that I gave them. And then they said these are people that have a formal role in Trump's current term. So there's that. Now, this website, let's check it out because I think this website is really, really neat. I don't know who put it together, but it's really, really cool. So let's check this out. So here it is up on the screen. And then let's see here. Let me get this back. So at the very top, it says Project 2025 Tracker. Okay. And then it's got some links. You can change it to dark mode. It's already dark mode. So you've got some drop downs here. Select agencies. So I can go through and I can select by agency, right? Which, what do I want to see? Then it's got subjects. So I can go through and I can look at the subjects. And so we've got some subjects here like accountability, aid, census, civil rights, economy, education, FEMA, food, foreign affairs, health, immigration. We'll check out immigration here in just a minute, just to kind of follow yesterday's show. Intel, labor, LGBTQIA, presidential power, public assistance, reproductive rights, staffing, student loans, TSA, unions. So it's got all these different topics. And then statuses. So this is pretty neat. All statuses. And then they break it down between those that are not started, those that are in progress, and those that are completed. And so if you look here at the overall progress, it puts it at 42%. That's quite a bit. Now, what I don't know, and it's 900 pages, so I'm not going to be able to necessarily verify, but they show that there are 313 items for which they have tracked. I don't know, and I'll look into it, if they're continually adding as they go or if this is supposed to be complete and now they're just monitoring to see what gets completed. So out of the 313, 99 are complete, 63 are in progress, which means the remaining, however many that number is, have not yet been started. Then it puts here, says time until end of term, 1,320 days, 4 hours, 52 minutes, and 40 seconds, dropping down by the second there. Then it says progress by agency. So the Commodity Futures Trading Commission had one objective, and that is 100% complete. USAID had 6 objectives. That's 100% complete. White House, 13 objectives, 88% complete. Department of State, 75% complete. U.S. Agency for Global Media, 67%. So these are the top ones that they listed. And then it says show 29 more agencies, and you could obviously go down and you can scroll and you can look. And then what they have is, so let's say we wanted to look at Department of Justice, right? So it's 61% complete. We could actually click on the objectives and it will click over here. And then what it does is it updates the drop down up here. So it's got one agency selected. And so then we can go down and we can see that detailed project objectives. And then it shows them, it's kind of like they got these little cards, if you will. So it says DOJ, Department of Justice, has a link to their site. And then it has just a quick summary of what was supposed to happen. So it says rescind AG Garland's policy that limited the department's ability to subpoena journalists during leak investigations. And then it's got view sources, and you click on it. They have a link to an article and a link to the Project 2025 document, and they give you the page number, right? So that's pretty neat. Before we get into that, and we'll dive into some immigration stuff, let's scroll down here to the bottom. Where are we here? So I guess I don't have to scroll to the bottom. So here we have some options. We say home, visualize, about, and feedback. So we can go to about, and here's what it says. Project 2025 Tracker began as a humble spreadsheet created by Rustic Gorilla, combined with Molly and Aquafina's vision for making this information accessible to everyone through a dedicated website. It's a cool idea. What started as a passion project by 2 Redditors. Is anybody in the comments going to ding me for using Redditor? material. Are you guys gonna be that tough on me? I don't even know. I'm gonna keep watch. I'll see if you guys are that tough on me. Hopefully you guys take it easy. But anyway, um, what started as a passion project by two Redditors has grown into a community driven resource powered by people like you who believe in the importance of transparent, detailed analysis. Right. So this just basically says, hey, this is a personal pet project and it's grown. Cool. They got this visualize button. So this is kind of cool. They've got two ways you can visualize it. You can visualize it in a timeline view. So you can click on the timeline and we can say, all right, when did all these things occur? So we start out with June 2025 and then we go backwards, right? So then we've got May, and it's just literally a little timeline of all the things that have completed. You can just scroll down the line, and then it's got load more button, 89 completed objectives remaining. So you could go and look at all the different ones, and you can see the order in which they happen. You also, on the visualize, you have a chart view. So this is kind of neat. It'll actually show you. All right. So on the left, the on the y-axis here, we've got a total of 313 items, and then we have our date ranges on the bottom on the x-axis, and we can see that as of January, and it looks like they update it month by month. As of January, you had 55 complete. As of February, you had 71, 84, 93, 98, 99. Right. So it looks like they're making steady progress on 2025. But it does like it obviously went from December, which was 0 to 55 kind of quickly. But after that, it seems to have kind of leveled out and there's a slow, steady pace. So there's that. So I think this is a pretty neat little thing. But again, what I don't know is 313 or is that the total number of objectives that are actually in the Project 2025 document? I don't know. It's a lot. And my guess is they're probably updating it as they go. That's my guess. And here's why. So if we go to select subjects, let's take a look and we'll look at immigration, right? So immigration has a total of 32 objectives. 11 are complete, 8 are in progress. So let's narrow this down and let's look at what is completed. And we're going to kind of take a look and see what we find. So here by agency, looks like the agencies that they have immigration for are the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, Department of State. All right. And then if we go down here, we can see the actual objectives. So let's take a look at this first one and we'll just see how this looks. So it says Department of Homeland Security. So that is the agency that it's under. Then you have what did they do? Authorize state and local law enforcement to participate in immigration actions. Okay, that's what we talked about yesterday. And then I have a little note. ICE partnerships with local law enforcement have more than tripled since Trump took office. Now, what's really neat about this is these are facts or these are claims, I mean, that you can verify. Because if you say something has more than tripled since Trump took office, well, we can go and we can look and we can, we can do the research and say how many ICE partnerships existed as of December 2024, right? And then how many exist now? And if it's more than tripled, well, then this claim is true. I love claims that come with that you can quantify, right? Like that is a great way to identify things. And this whole website is kind of neat, right? Like I can see now, even though I might not know whether 313 is the total number of objectives or if there are more to be added, I can still look and say out of 313 known objectives, here's how many have been completed. And then I can make some assertions about how closely aligned Trump really is with Project 2025. So if let's just say at the end of the year, that 313 number remains the same. And then now now the tracker says 280 of them have been accomplished. Well, then we could reasonably say that at a minimum, Trump was influenced by Project 2025, if not on board and just lying to the American public. And, it's our job as the American public to hold our representatives accountable. If we're not going to do that, then why bother arguing about politics? Why bother worrying about, elections and who's going to win and all the money that's being spent, right? Why worry about that if we're not even going to hold them accountable? In fact, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a quick story. I used to mentor kids here in Jacksonville through an organization called Daniel Kids. Okay, it's a great organization. They work with at-risk children, and they paired me with a young man, and we were, I would get together with him like once a week, and we would just kind of like hang out, right? Like there was no formal, and I say hang out not to sound creepy, but because we didn't have a formal like this is what we're going to do unless we planned something. Like we might say, hey, we're going to go fishing, but we would just talk, right, effectively. And so he would bring up stuff and just talk about whatever. So we were going somewhere, and he was talking about some of his past mentors that he had. And he said he had one mentor that was very, very Republican. And this was back when I think Mitt Romney was running. And he said, I think it was Mitt Romney. And he said the guy tried to pay his mom, his mentor tried to pay his mom to vote for the Republican candidate. Now, I almost had a heart attack when he said that because I was like, number one, that's way illegal. But as a libertarian, just because something's illegal doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with that being illegal. But first and foremost, that's illegal. You cannot do that. Um, and number two, and not necessarily in this order of precedent. Number two, you are a mentor. You are not here to try to convince, a child that he should be a Republican or a Democrat or even a libertarian, right? I kept my political opinions to myself unless he asked. When he asked, then I would give him the most nuanced and neutral answer that I could, because my job was to mentor him as a man, not as a libertarian. So I kept that line distinct. But more importantly, here's what I mentioned, and here's how this ties into here, into what I was just talking about. I said the big problem with paying somebody, if disregard whether it's illegal or not, the big problem with that is if I paid somebody $100 to vote for my favorite candidate, they're doing it for the $100, not because they believe in that candidate. What that means is if this candidate has given, like, say, 5 promises, and I'm hoping that they're going to follow through on those 5 promises, and then I pay somebody $100 to vote for them so that I can get this guy in to do these 5 promises. Well, let's say they renege on 4 of them. Well, I'm going to be pretty upset. So I may yell and scream at this candidate who's now elected. I may yell and scream like, hey, you said you were going to do these other 4 things and you've reneged. But guess what happened to the person that I paid? Well, they weren't vested in any of that in the first place. They wanted $100. So now guess what? They're going to be quiet. So from the candidate, or I'm sorry, the elected person's, their representatives' perspective, out of the 2 of us, 50% of us are mad, 50% are not. Do you see how this works? Now, of course, once you bubble it out, you also have to start considering, people that are going to be diehard supporters no matter what, and they will just make excuses. All right. You have some of them. You have people that are going to be angry. You're going to have people that are going to turn against them. Right. So maybe you have a supporter who's just upset and they're like, look, I still support you, but you need to get back on track. You're going to have other people who will say, well, I was a supporter. Now I'm not. I hate you. And I'm going to do everything I can to obstruct everything you do. Right. You're going to have some of those. But then you're also going to have a lot of people that just are apathetic. Well, what ends up happening is the apathetic crowd and the supportive crowd, however they're supporting, whether the diehard supporters or whether they're still supporting, they're kind of going to be lumped in to the same group. And so politicians count 2 things very well. They're very good at this. They count money and votes. So if you don't appeal to them in one of those 2 ways, then good luck getting them to do what they are supposed to do, what they promised to do, right? So for me, when I look at it, we should look at these kind of things and we should say, all right, what are you doing? Do we agree with this? So I'm thinking to really go through this now that I have a website that's kind of made it easy and, to go through and take a look and then just evaluate and say, okay, we would evaluate 2 things. Number 1, did he accomplish this, right? As stated. Like, do I agree? And then number 2, would I consider a particular objective to fall within the realm or the range of acceptability by libertarian standards? Right? Like those are the kind of things that we can just go through. So that's what I'm thinking to do. I'm probably going to do it unless you guys are like, no, don't you dare. That's a terrible idea. Like, but I don't think you will. Let's go back to that. Let's go back to this website because I want to dig in a little bit more. All right, so we have this first one: authorize state and local law enforcement to participate in immigration actions. Okay, and so it's got 2 links, 2 sources: Project 2025, page 150. So let's click on this. All right, so it opens it up, right up, and it goes right to um, page 150. 150 of the document, not necessarily 150 of the PDF. So let's zoom in a little bit right here at the top. All right. If we scroll back a little bit, we see the bullet point: state and local law enforcement. You know what? Let me zoom in a little more. All right. We can do that. There we go. I think it's going to be, maybe we can get a little more. Yeah, I think that should get us there. That's about as much as we can zoom in on it. Okay. So it says state and local law enforcement. Then it goes down and it has 2 bullet points. Congress. Congress should unequivocally authorize state and local law enforcement to participate in immigration and border security actions in compliance with Arizona versus the United States. Now, I checked in on Arizona versus the United States because I was very curious what it did. And where did I go? I'm just gonna kind of give you a bit of a summary of what that case was about. And do. Give me just a second here. No, that's not where I wanted to go. Go back. Go back. All right. Do. No, there we go. And we will go here. Perfect. Okay, so Arizona versus the United States. This was in 2012. Landmark U.S. Supreme Court case addressing the balance of power between the federal government and states in regulating immigration. Background: here's the case origin. The case arose from Arizona's Support Our Law Enforcement and Safe Neighborhoods Act of 2010 to address illegal immigration within the state. What ended up happening? The Supreme Court ruled 5-3 with Justice Kagan recusing herself. The majority opinion written by Justice Anthony Kennedy. And so here's what they ruled. The outcome: they struck down 3 of the 4 challenged provisions in SB 1070 out of Arizona. What they struck down was Section 3, which states making it a state crime to fail to carry registration documents was preempted because it intruded on federal registration laws. That's good because I didn't realize this, but apparently Arizona, according to this, they and I haven't double checked. So in the future, if I do this show, which I think I will make sure to verify everything 100%. But I'm feeling pretty confident here. Um, they were trying to basically implement papers, please. That's what it says, making it a state crime to fail to carry registration documents. That is papers, please. I don't even know if it's 2012, so I wouldn't have heard about it because I probably wasn't paying attention back then. Section 5. This is what also struck down. Criminalizing undocumented immigrants for seeking work was preempted as federal law already regulates employment of aliens. Okay, so they basically said, like, look, we're already taking care of that. You don't need to. And the way the supremacy clause in the Constitution works, if there are 2 laws, one by the state, one by the federal government, if if the state conflicts with the federal law, then federal law supersedes it. All right. So that's basically what they're working on. Then section 6, allowing warrantless, I already don't like this, arrest for suspected removable offenses was preempted as it interfered with federal discretion and procedures for deportation. So Arizona wanted to be able to arrest suspected uh, illegal aliens without a warrant. That's crazy. All right, what was upheld though, the provision, Section 2B, the provision requiring police to check immigration status during lawful stops, detentions, or arrest was upheld with the caveat that it must be implemented in a way that avoids prolonged detention or civil rights violations. The court left open future challenges based on how Arizona applied it. The reasoning by the court was that the federal government has broad, undoubted power over immigration derived from its authority over foreign relations and naturalization. States cannot enact laws that conflict with or undermine federal immigration policy. The court found no direct conflict with federal law at the time, but cautioned against discriminatory or unconstitutional enforcement, and that's for Section 2B, which they upheld. So that's very interesting. And I was not aware of this. So that's part of this. Um, that's part of this state and local law enforcement. The second one, Congress should require compliance with immigration detainers to the maximum extent consistent with the 10th Amendment and set financial disincentives for jurisdictions that implement either official or unofficial sanctuary policies. So that's very interesting, right? Because yesterday I talked about the sanctuary cities and I pointed out that the redhead was incorrect in her assessment, or at least, if you're going to be generous, it was incomplete, right? But actually, when it came to the sanctuary cities, I said that she was incorrect. So she was incomplete on the Article 2 powers regarding the president. That was incomplete. But then when it came to sanctuary cities, I said, nope, she's absolutely incorrect on this. So incomplete on one, incorrect on the other. And that was because whether or not a state or a city is in violation as a sanctuary city depends on how they've implemented being a sanctuary state or city. In the case of California, they implemented it and said, look, we forbid explicitly any law enforcement agency from cooperating or working with the federal agencies, right? When it comes to immigration. That's not illegal. The federal government cannot force a state or a local entity, local, like city or a county or whatever, a local entity to either enforce federal immigration laws or participate in federal programs. They cannot force them to do that. But what they can do, which is right here, Congress should require compliance with immigration detainers, and then set financial disincentives for jurisdictions that implement either official or unofficial sanctuary policies. So basically, this is, oh, you got all that funding for the roads, huh? Be a shame if you didn't get that money, if you don't want to implement this policy. That's exactly what it is. They are bullying states through financial means. They're basically waving money and saying, you don't want to do it? We don't have to give you this money. That's the game they're playing. All right, let's go back to the Project 2025 tracker. Now let's see. So they've identified an objective, right? We have an objective. Now let's take a look, and we've taken a look and we say, okay, in the official document, yep, we can see that objective was there, right? Authorize state and local law enforcement to participate in immigration actions. So let's look at their source because they have a source here. All right, we're going to pull this up. This is from CBS News. This is April 18th of this year. We're going to zoom in. Of course, ad blocks. I'll fix it next time. Okay, perfect. All right, so they're not going to ding me. I'm using Opera, which blocks ads unsuccessfully, as you can see. But let's see, ICE partnerships with local law enforcement triple as Trump cracks down, continues deportation crackdown. Let's skim through. As President Trump aims to carry out what he's called the largest mass deportation in history, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has been rapidly expanding a program that deputizes local law enforcement to perform immigration enforcement duties. As of Thursday afternoon, April 17th, there were 456 active 287G agreements. That's the name of the agreement, 287G, or partnerships between ICE and local agencies. More than 3 times as many as there were in December 2024, according to data on ICE's website. An additional 63 agreements were still pending. While some of the agreements only grant permission for local law enforcement to ask questions about immigration status at a jail book-in, an increasing number follow what ICE calls a quote task force model, end quote, giving local authorities the ability to carry out immigration enforcement duties during routine policing, such as during a traffic stop. Others follow a third model called the warrant officer model, which gives local law enforcement the ability to execute a federal immigration warrant. Right? So you have these variations of this program that they're implementing that is basically allowing where the federal government says, okay, you can't create your own laws and legislation regarding immigration in most cases. But what you can do is you can participate if you do it the way we want you to do it, but via this prescription, right? Like you can do one of these few models. That's what's going on. And so then we got here a little graph, a little chart, and it shows the task force model, the warrant service officer model, jail enforcement model, the jail and task force model. So they have different models, and they show you over time how many. And we can see, like, if we look over here and we say, all right, what was in January of 2024? At that point, you had 60 jail enforcement models, and currently, as of April 2025, you have 86. And then over here, the task force model, they're now at 190, presuming these are just cities, not states, but 190 versus what they had back in, let's see, December of 2024, which is 75. So we have concrete numbers that we can look at and say, this many municipalities, they are they are engaging in immigration participation with the federal government when it comes to immigration. All right. Once a local law enforcement officer identifies an alleged immigration violation, they have the authority to detain the person until ICE takes them into custody or issue a notice to appear to begin removal proceedings in immigration court, according to the memorandums of agreement between the agencies and ICE. The Department of Homeland Security did not respond to a request from CBS News about the rapid increase in the number of 287G agreements. County and city police departments in 38 states have signed jail or task force agreements with ICE, but nearly half of them are from jurisdictions in Florida. I can tell you right now, Jacksonville is one of them. I don't remember which episode it was, but I was talking about how Jacksonville City Council, they pushed this immigration bill, and I pointed out that we already were participating in the 287G agreement. We were already doing that before they passed this legislation. So basically, Jacksonville is on board with the Project 2025 program, or at least in this particular issue, right? On this particular objective, we're on board. I object to it, but we are. The Florida Sheriff's Association announced in February that all county jails had signed agreements in compliance with the state law enacted in 2022. Governor Ron DeSantis issued an executive order requiring state agencies to comply as well. So that's kind of interesting, right? Because state agencies are required to comply. The Florida Sheriff's Office said, hey, every county jail, there's 67 counties in Florida. So 67 county jails have signed agreements, right? And remember, you might remember one of my episodes in the past, several of them actually, where I said, hey, Florida is becoming a police state. I'm just saying, the evidence is right here. The agreements extend beyond county sheriff's offices or local police departments. Two Florida boards of county commissioners and the state's Department of Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission have also signed agreements. At least 3 Florida universities are also seeking agreements for their campus police departments. Mr. Trump was open about his desire to use local law enforcement to arrest undocumented immigrants on the campaign trail. Why would that be? Because they don't have enough, right? And when you use local law enforcement, they know the city better, right? And it's going to be less problematic. So this might explain, in part, why Trump chose to go to California instead of the red states. Remember yesterday I said, why didn't you just go to the red states and take care of that? He doesn't have to, right? Because Florida, we're doing the work for him. We're doing the federal government's job here in Florida. Um, and he was looking and saying, all right, well, California, you're not. So therefore I'm going to come and we're going to raise hell in your state. Uh, let's see, going on. Let's see. I hope you're all in. All in. I hope you're all in. All the sheriffs in the room, said Trump's border czar Tom Homan at National Sheriffs Association conference in February. We need your bed space. We need your 287 agreements. We're opening up the floodlines, he added. Homan said that the administration was working to cut down the amount of training time for officers joining the program from 4 weeks to 1. That's not going to be bad at all. And that they are aiming to provide, quote, full-scale indemnification, end quote, to officers who may face legal challenges for immigration enforcement. That's interesting. So all this time, libertarians have been like, we need to end qualified immunity. But it looks like the Trump administration wants to kind of expand it and say, like, look, we will give you indemnification if you're participating in our immigration crackdown, um, and we will give you full scale indemnification. Fun times. Let's see, county level 287 agreements. Here's a nice little graph. So it shows how many. You can see Florida is all in, right, for at least the task force model. And then you got California, who has none. Let me see. Can you hover over it? No, it doesn't do that. Okay. Oh, yeah, you can hover over it. Oh, okay. You can hover over the different counties and you can see. And so you can look and see which model they have. So if I wanted to go to Florida, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, we have the task force model. So looks like Florida is really advancing Project 2025 when it comes to the immigration. Fun times. Local law enforcement agencies have been participating in the program since 2002. The agreements named for the section of the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996 that authorizes it were initially encouraged by the Bush administration after 9/11 as a way to enlist state and local law enforcement agencies in identifying terrorist suspects. So, what do we hear? What are we saying here? What we're saying is that we're basically extending the spirit of the Patriot Act, and we have been since 2002. That we took what was supposed to be an idea, a program to identify terrorist suspects. Now we're using it for immigration. What do you suppose might be next? Let me say a name. Let me see if it rings a bell. Palantir. Sound familiar? Just saying. Throwing it out there. We are creating a police state. We're marching forward right along. Republicans are taking us there. It remained focused on those with criminal records in its first few years. Imagine that. But as the program expanded, particularly during the Obama administration, some local agencies began using the expanded powers to apprehend as many undocumented immigrants as possible. What do I always say about government programs? Anything that sounds good, hey, we're going to go get these really, really terrible bad guys. But then when it ends up happening, they either run out or they need to justify because maybe they're having trouble finding those same bad guys. So they divert their attention. They're like, oh, you know what? We're having trouble finding the violent illegal immigrants. Let's just go get some undocumented ones too. Or they might expand it because they want to look good. Look how many we have caught. Woohoo, we're doing good, right? Like everybody wants to be able to use a program and say, look how well we're doing. It's incentive. This is why we have to be vigilant, folks. All right, I'm going to read this remaining part, and then we'll, yeah, there's a lot here. We'll finish this particular one. Following legal challenges and accusations of racial profiling, the Obama administration let all task force model agreements expire in 2012 and limited 287G enforcement to jail bookends. Let's see. But the Department of Justice and academics have found that municipalities with 287G agreements racially profiled individuals. Both the department, not but. Researchers at Texas A&M University School of Law analyzed data on 18 million traffic stops and found that in North Carolina and South Carolina, state troopers under 287 agreements stopped Hispanic drivers more often than white drivers to funnel them into immigration screening. We are basically doing stop and frisk. That's basically what it is at a federal level. So there you have it, folks. I just kind of wanted to give you a taste of what we could do. So I'm going to look at the comments here and then we're going to wind this down. Actually went a little bit longer than I even intended, but that's okay. No big deal. So let's take a look at the comments and we'll see what you all are saying in there. And then you have an idea of what we can learn from this document and what the Trump administration is up to. So let's see. You got a lot of comments in here. Goodness gracious. I don't know if I'll be able to get to all those. Let's see. Some of these comments, I'm not even sure what to make of them. Time surfing alien says, don't touch my roads. Pretty much. Like everybody's always worried about the roads and the financial incentives. We'd have to go and look and dig further to see what what the disincentives would be. Like, what are they taking away? What would they do? Right. We'd have to dig into it. But that's basically what it ends up being. Let's see. That's an interesting point. Why is he even talking about 2025 now? That's some super old news. I feel bad for Liberty Dad because he's doing all this talking and research, but nobody even cares. Well, when we enter our totalitarian state, if my YouTube channel is still up and my Rumble channel is still up, I will be able to point back and say, I told you dummies so, right? Like you won't be able to blame me. But also, more importantly, why would I talk about it now? It actually, and let me see if I can pull this up. Let me see here. Let's take a look here. I want to see if I can't show you guys something really quickly here. So I'm getting ready to, because the argument is that nobody's talking about it. Okay. So let me see if I can't add this to the screen really quickly here. We're going to let's go here, and then we will. Oh yeah, we'll do this. So boom, 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 boom. Okay, then let's correct that. So I'm just making a couple quick adjustments here so that we can see what we've got on the screen here. So I'll show you, because I think you guys will be a little bit surprised. So, all right, let me see. I'm almost done here. Doing some stuff on the fly. It's like live coding. If you've ever done any live coding, which is an absolute bad idea, that's basically what you end up getting here. So let's take a look. All right, I'm not gonna make this look super duper pretty, but here we go. Okay, so I just did a quick search. This is a quick search on for Project 2025 on Twitter. And then I said, sort it by the latest post. So we've got one that was just 16 seconds ago. Ban contraceptives, wrong again. Nowhere in Project 2025 is the word contraceptive used, right? And they're responding to somebody else. Then we've got this one. Okay, I do whatever. Trump causes chaos to pass the big beautiful bill. The Republicans' one big beautiful bill is the MAGA regime's attempt to replace the American government we've had since the 1930s with the one that reflects anti-democratic values of Project 2025, right? Katie Miller, the conservative Jew, and her husband want to send all Latinos back to their home. They made this clear in Project 2025. These posts that I'm reading, they came from today, within just minutes ago, right? Let's see here. A lot of them are responding to this outspoken person. Let's see what they said. Oh, here they go. Almost as if Trump told us what he was going to do before you idiots voted him back into the Oval. And then they've listed a whole bunch of items from Project 2025. And this post has 20.5 thousand views. It was made this morning. It was made at 12:57 a.m. So it's barely 8 hours old, right? And it's got 629 reposts, 32 responses, 1.2 thousand likes. So people are talking about this, actually, right? It's still being talked about. If we look up, let's see, we can go to Google, right? And we can just type in Project 2025. I like doing this. 2025. So, all right, here. And so let's make this a little bit bigger there. All right, so let's go to news. 18 hours ago from Education Week, Trump admin adds Project 2025 author to Education Department staff. LGBTQ Nation, gay representative Mark Pocan lists how Trump is implementing Project 2025. I mean, I know these sources are not necessarily the best, but they are opponents, right? Daily Costs, Project 2025, New York Times, the group behind Project 2025, has a plan to crush the pro-Palestinian movement. Conversation, who is Project 2025 co-author? That was 4 weeks ago. We're starting to get into a little bit later, but it's still being talked about, actually. So I disagree, and it may be of some value, and maybe not. I mean, if you guys don't want to hear about it, I mean, we'll talk about something else. Let's see. Let's see what else we got here. Awesome. Cassandra Detroit, morning, new subscriber. Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean that. I really do. I love having new people come in, check out the show. Feel free to throw in comments. Let me know if you think I'm doing great or if I could improve. If you think I'm doing terrible, like I said at the beginning of the show, depends on how you deliver that message. So let's see what else we got here. Who else is up in here? And I thank you guys in the comments there for being welcoming. Don't be jerks. Let's see. Junior Coltrane, I'm only on YouTube too. That's cool. I appreciate. Look, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching on X, or you're watching on Facebook, or you're watching on Rumble, I thank you. I really do. Right now I am making a push more toward Rumble, but I need my YouTube viewers as well, right? Facebook, yeah, I don't know. I don't hear much from you guys, so I don't know. And then I see you guys on X. I've got some faithful on X that are out there. Michael Smith just posted, which I cannot put on the screen. I apologize, Michael. I appreciate the work you put in, DL. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I think, if I remember correctly, Michael is one of the people that regularly repost the show on X. So I definitely appreciate everybody here. Let's see what else we got in here. Looking through the comments here. So interesting question. Liberty Dad seems like a real conspiracy theory guy. Does he watch Alex Jones and MSNBC? So I am not a conspiracy guy. You will rarely hear me talk about conspiracies unless maybe I'm poking fun at it or I'm just making a very quick comment. But I don't really dive into them too much. What I look for are things that I can kind of substantiate, which is why I think the Project 2025 might be of value now where it wasn't of value before the election. Because, like I said, Trump disavowed it. He said, look, I have nothing to do with it. Okay, well, what are you going to do? The Heritage Foundation has published, this same document. They call it something else, but they published this document. It's like the 19th version or something. So they've been publishing this document for a long time. This is not a new thing. This Project 2025, they've done it on a regular basis for Republican presidents. Whether or not they've implemented it or adhered to it in any way, I couldn't tell you. But this is not a new thing. But again, it was conspiracy theory level before the election because Trump was disavowing it. And he was saying some of these things are crazy and abysmal. And because he was a Republican, because the Heritage Foundation is Republican, or Republican leaning at least, you can basically expect some overlap on their ideas. That's just natural. So the overlap is not sufficient to say, yeah, he's totally doing Project 2025. But now we can look and say, well, how much of it is being implemented? And so then we can make some determinations and say, maybe, like, if almost all of it gets implemented by the end of his term, we can look and be like, he was a total liar, right? Like we could say that. We could say, because like one way or another, it happened. So, but no, I do not watch Alex Jones or MSNBC unless I'm doing research. If I see something pop up in my feed enough, then I'll tune in. But I don't regularly watch those. In fact, I'll give you a quick story, very quick story. Back in like the early 2000s, I was listening to my local radio host back up in Indiana, and they were talking about the Bohemian Grove. That's a video that Alex Jones produced. And this woman was on the show talking about how legitimate it was, and how people need to watch it, blah blah blah. Well, I had watched it, just so happened I had watched it like 2 weeks prior, something like that. So it's still fresh in my mind. And I was like, man, there was a whole bunch of garbage in that. So I called up the radio show and I was like arguing with them. I was like, no. And I was like, this isn't in there. That's not in there. You can't prove this, blah, blah. And they, like, I just demolished them. I just annihilated them. And I didn't even really know much about Alex Jones then. And I haven't really followed him since then. Although I'm familiar with him. I keep up a little bit. But no, I don't watch him or MSNBC or anything for the most part on the regular unless I'm doing research. The one place that I do, the one podcast that I do try to tune in is Dave Smith, because I really like his analysis on things and I think he's pretty good at it. But I don't even listen to him on, too regular because I'm just busy. But that would be the closest. Let's see here. Do to do to do. Do to do to do. What else we got here? All right, I think that's it. Oh, okay. It looks like you guys are talking about movies and books. Okay, that's cool. All right, folks. Well, that's going to be the end of my show for today. I think that's all the comments that I need to address. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. And it doesn't look like there's any huge objections. So I'm going to figure out exactly how I'm going to continue this as a series. So stay tuned, folks. But for now, I'm going to be heading out. So have a good one. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Make sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer my Rumble channel, you can go to youtube.libertydad.com, or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you are there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. You can also become part of the community by heading over to libertydad.locals.com. Remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.